This is Rabbi Dov Fischer from Young Israel of Orange County. Welcome to our Sunday morning weekly program. We used to call it the Hamas Gaza War, and we're going to start this week, we're going to rename the program something like the Jewish world in the past week. I have to cut it down by about 2 words, like Jewish past week, because it goes beyond the war in Israel. Jewish past week. First of all, I'm glad to meet you all and that you're here. And if you like it, just click like. Apparently, there are benefits to having more likes. If you don't like it, click don't like, because we can handle it and we don't care. So, but if you can put down like, that's useful. So I think we covered all bases. Again, don't hesitate to do a don't like if it makes you feel better, because the world is a lot better today than it was a week ago. And we don't care if there are 70 million people with don't likes. We are like. Here we go. This is Boston, one day at the subway. In case you're missing it, obviously don't, but I don't know the size of your screen. When he says reaching out, it's the custom at the Boston Red Sox. Did everyone in Boston, when they play the part of reaching out, everybody reaches their arms out? Again, for me, what that shows, there's the day is not over yet. There's still a part of America that doesn't get attention, and that's everyday's America. Now, what the future holds, I don't know. Those who know me well know that I'm a little bit dubious about the long-term future of Jews in America because of history. I'm a student of history, and I just know it never lasts. No matter how good it is in the Golah, the place we belong is Israel. And I never forget that, and none of us should. But this is a good country. There's a lot of good in this country. And it's important for us to recall how blessed we are we live today, whether in America or in Israel, where no matter how horrible they treat us outside, we can fight back and we can stand, because this very day, November 10, 1938, it was different. Today, November 10, 1938, is Kristallnacht, the anniversary of the night of the broken glass. That was 86 years ago. For those who attended my Thursday night class, when we talked about that God, through the Kohen HaMashiach, the anointed Kohen, needs to inspire the people not to be afraid, even as they hear the marching of the enemy and the boots marching and the swords clacking, not to be afraid. But this was not a Melchemet Mitzvah, a moment of commanded Torah law war. This was living in the exile in a time that there was no Israel. 86 years ago.
Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass, was the wave of violent anti-Jewish pogroms on November 9th and 10th of 1938, It took place throughout Germany, annexed Austria, and in areas of Czechoslovakia recently occupied by German troops.
If you can't see that, if you couldn't see that legend on the map, every dot is where a shul was destroyed that night. Every dot is where all of Germany, every dot, cities where synagogues were destroyed. That's Kristallnacht, the night of crystal, the night of the broken glass. We continue.
And in areas of Czechoslovakia recently occupied by German troops. Kristallnacht owes its name to the shards of shattered glass from the windows of synagogues, homes, and Jewish-owned businesses that lined German streets in the wake of the pogrom. On November 7, 1938, Ernst von Rath, a German embassy official stationed in Paris, was assassinated by Herschel Grimspan, a 17-year-old Polish Jew living illegally in Paris. Grimspan revengefully shot the diplomat after witnessing the expulsion of not only his parents, but thousands of Jews of Polish citizenship living in the German Reich. Von Rath died on November 9, 1938. The same day, at a meeting of Nazi Party leadership, propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels, a chief instigator of the Kristallnacht pogroms, suggested that world Jewry had conspired to commit the assassination and ordered that any demonstration, while not organized by the Nazi Party, shall not be hampered. Newspapers reported otherwise. After Goebbels' speech, violence erupted in various parts of the Reich. Paramilitary, or SA, and Hitler Youth units throughout Germany and its annexed territories destroyed Jewish-owned homes and businesses. Jewish artifacts were confiscated, and many young, healthy Jewish men were arrested and filled local jails. The rioters destroyed 267 synagogues throughout Germany, Austria, and the Sudetenland. Many synagogues burned throughout the night in full view of public and of local firefighters who had received orders to intervene only to prevent flames from spreading to nearby buildings. SA and Hitler Youth members shattered shop windows of an estimated 7,500 Jewish-owned commercial establishments and looted their wares. Jewish cemeteries became a particular object of desecration in many regions. Mobs of SA men roamed the streets, attacking Jews in their houses and forcing Jews they encountered to perform acts of public humiliation. Kristallnacht claimed the lives of at least 91 Jews. As the pogrom spread, units of the SS and Gestapo, the secret state police, arrested up to 30,000 Jewish males and transferred most of them from local prisons to Dachau and Buchenwald, as well as other concentration camps. In the immediate aftermath of the pogrom, measures were introduced to eliminate Jews and perceived Jewish influence from the German economic sphere. The German government announced that the Jews were to blame for the pogrom, imposing a fine of $400 million on the German Jewish community. German education officials expelled Jewish children still attending German schools. The German government announced laws that enforced Aryanization policy, the transfer of Jewish-owned enterprises and property to the Aryan ownership. The events of Kristallnacht represented one of the most important turning points in Nazi anti-Semitic policy. The Nazi regime moved eventually towards policies of forced immigration and finally toward the realization of a Germany free of Jews by deportation of the Jewish population to the east. It is important to understand and remember these events. It is also important to honor those that lived and died during this destructive part of history. It's probably most critical that we teach the lessons so that it may never happen again.
On the subject of will it never happen again, it is not in our hands. We cannot prevent it happening again. Never again for realistic Jews. We cannot prevent it from ever happening again. Only God. What does never again mean to me? Never again, if it does happen, will they get away with it. Never again, if it does happen, will we need to rely on others to do something about it and protect us. And as we go further today, an example is what happened in Holland that we'll be covering very soon. This happened once before in Holland, 60, 70, 80 years ago. It happened in Holland. Anne Frank was hiding in Holland. And when they found her and took her away, they found her and took her away. The Franks actually had a chance to get out of Holland, and they applied to the United States, and Franklin Roosevelt said no. They weren't famous yet. Her diary wasn't known. She was just a kid. Who knew who she was? And Roosevelt said no. And Jews had nowhere to go while they still were alive and might have had a chance to get out. They had nowhere to go because no one would let them in. Never again means never again will there be a place that we can't go. Never again will they get away with it. When they did October 7 a year ago from Gaza, it showed you cannot say never again that 1,200 Jews will never again be slaughtered in one day with rapes and with babies put into ovens. But you can say never again will they get away with it. And you can say we won't rely on others because others cannot be relied on, including those that cry with us the day it happens. They will all turn on us later, as they did during World War II, with a few exceptions, as during World War II. Never again means, even if those data were correct about 40,000 dying in Gaza, and I don't believe the numbers, and they don't tell us how many of those 40,000 are Hamas and their families, okay? And people who've died in car crashes and from cancer and from other illnesses, and how many people have died of old age, okay? But anyway, never again means worse comes to worse if we have to kill everybody, whoever harbors such people, just as America could do it in Dresden and in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That's what never again means. That if anyone ever tries again a Kristallnacht, we just saw, we'll see again in a few moments, immediately the prime minister of the state of Israel announced that they're sending extra shifts of El Al planes into Holland to evacuate all Israelis who want to be evacuated. That the prime minister of Israel was able to get on the phone with the king of Netherlands and with the prime minister of Netherlands and got apologies and assurances that even though the police did nothing the night before, making it a pogrom of people running the streets and police standing aside, that there would be a fix. And if there had not been a fix, never again would have been expressed in that way too, in other ways as well. So it's important when we remember Kristallnacht. For me, I'm not asking people to feel bad for me as a Jew. I don't buy into the Holocaust Museum philosophy of telling everybody how bad we had it. I don't want anyone's sympathy. I won't tolerate it. For me, it's like my lung transplant. I don't want sympathy. I don't handle that well. And no Jew should handle sympathy. You need to have respect. Other people want reparations, and they want everybody to feel bad and give them special treatment. Not us. We don't want special treatment. Just want you to keep your hands off us and let us earn the opportunity to be successful. Just let us have a chance. And never again means we have a country. And never again means we're able to do these things. So I want to make that point because too many take away from Kristallnacht that we've got to let people know what happened to us so they feel bad for us, so they don't do it again. No, be afraid of us so you don't do it again. I'd rather they see the Gaza statistics in Lebanon. You want to do this to us? That's what awaits you. Never, ever again. never again to be helpless, never again to be at the mercy of people who will not save us. We continue.
I saw uniformed people at the store where the glass was broken. We see our neighbors grabbing the things from the store. The uniformed people stood at the door and watching it and laughing and having a good time. I'm Margot Friedland. I was born in Berlin on the 5th of November 1921. I was on my way to work in the morning, and when I came down, I felt that the air is not the same as usual. The synagogues were burning. Everybody was up, and everybody knew what happened already.
On November 9th and 10th, 1938, the Nazis launched a series of attacks against Jews in Germany and Austria. During Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass, more than 7,000 Jewish homes, businesses, and synagogues were burned and destroyed. Nearly 100 Jews were murdered that night, and about 30,000 Jewish men were taken to concentration camps, including Dachau, Sachsenhausen, and Buchenwald. The event marked a turning point in the persecution and attempted annihilation of the Jewish people at the hands of the Nazis.
We felt Germans. We felt we belong here.
Margot was born and raised in a Jewish family in Berlin. Her father, mother, and brother were all murdered in the gas chambers. Margot's story is just one of millions who endured the horrors of the Holocaust, had their families decimated, and whose dreams and futures were tarnished forever.
I don't understand that humans could give their hand for something like this. So many. How was it possible that millions could do that?
With the number of survivors dwindling each year, we must listen to their stories and transmit them to future generations so they're never forgotten.
I said to
This is breaking news happening right now in Amsterdam, where Arab lynch mobs of terrorists are hunting down Jews and Israelis. Dutch police have reported that at least 25 Israelis have been severely beaten up, including stabbed, repeatedly kicked in the head, and then having their bodies thrown into the canals of Amsterdam. This happened after a sporting event that featured an Israeli team. These lynch mobs are still running rampant across the streets of Amsterdam. There have been at least 50 of these terrorists who've been arrested by Dutch police, and it is known that they are of Turkish and Iranian descent.
That's Palestine, huh? That's Gaza, motherfuckers. That's Gaza. That's Gaza, ولاد الكحاب. That's Gaza. That's Gaza. Gaza ودك حبايك. Huh? Now you know how it feels, eh? Now you know how it feels, eh, motherfucker? Stay. الزمن طبطون تعطلك الزمن طبطون لا ميك
At this very moment in Amsterdam, Jews are being attacked at multiple locations with brutal force. It's a pogrom in action. I call upon the Dutch authorities, the Amsterdam authorities, to act immediately to prevent further injury and to prevent the loss of lives.
That, of course, is Naftali Bennett, who was the previous prime minister in between the Netanyahu terms in office.
This for the children, motherfucker.
I'll give you my money. I'll give you, please go.
For the children.
I'll give you my money.
Free Palestine now. Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
You want to kill cats? Cats should seize you. Fuck Israel!
Hey, stop! Stop! Stop!
Go back, motherfucker!
That kind of siren, different from the American siren. Some of you may remember that siren from the Anne Frank movie. Same siren, same streets, Amsterdam.
כן, לילה טוב, פוגרום באמסטרדם, אני שומע גם את
Good evening. There's a pogrom going on right now in Amsterdam.
הפרטים שלכם שאתם מעבירים בשידור, גם רואה כמובן את התיעודים, וקשה להאמין שהגענו למצב שנראה שוב פעם ברחובות אירופה.
It is hard to believe that we are seeing again the same sights on the streets of Europe. This is Channel 14 עכשיו.
את התמונות האלו נגיד כמה שעות, לפחות 3-4 שעות שאנחנו רואים את התיעודים האלו, ועדיין הרשויות בהולנד לא נכנסו כל כך.
These pictures you're seeing have been going on for 3 to 4 hours, and the police department, the police force of Holland still has not shown up.
לתמונה, אני אתחבר גם לדברים שבועז אומר, אנחנו מקבלים דיווחים על אוהדים מנותקי קשר שהטלפונים שלהם נגנבו.
These attacks are on fans of the Maccabi Tel Aviv soccer team that was playing in Amsterdam. 3,000 Israelis flew from Israel to Amsterdam to cheer on their top soccer team, the Maccabi Tel Aviv soccer team, and they are the ones being targeted after the game by Arabs, primarily from Turkey and Iran, who have become part of the European population and Dutch population. This is why Geert Wilders, the political leader on the opposition, now he's part of the government coalition, has been so outspoken. And we've heard Geert Wilders several times on our Sunday programs about what's going on in Amsterdam and in Holland as they've brought in more and more of these Iranian, Turkish, Muslim, Arab, and it's happening in France, it's happening in England. There's a great question whether it's going to happen here in America.
ולכן לא מצליחים להבין איפה הם, הדרכונים שלהם נגנבו, הטלפונים שלהם נגנבו.
There are at least 3 people who we've lost contact with. Others have called in to their families, letting them know they're alive, they're well. There are 3 people, perhaps their phones have been stolen and their passports may have been stolen. There are 3 people not accounted for, and unspoken was a fear. It's the impact of October 7, that who knows, maybe they were kidnapped and taken hostage. Baruch Hashem, they all have appeared now, so we know they're all there.
אין איזשהו פריט שיכול לסייע לאתר אותם, ונוסיף לכך את הדיווחים ואת התמונות שראינו גם של ניידות משטרה שכבר בתחילת האירועים חולפות ליד כמה ממוקדי המהומות ופשוט לא עושות דבר, וגם לאחר מכן במשך דקות.
Again, he mentions, look at these pictures, and the police did not do a thing.
בלא מעט מוקדים פשוט המשטרות לא מגיעות, נגיד הולנד, מדינה באירופה, לא ערוכה כל כך להתמודד עם מצבים כאלה, לא מכירה כל כך כיצד האנשים האלו, אותם תומכי חמאס, הם מתנהלים כאשר הם אלימים, וזה אולי מסביר את ההתנהלות האיטית של המשטרה.
Plenty of Hamas supporters on the streets of Holland.
משטרה שעדיין נמשכת, למרות שלפי מה שאני מבין, כבר היו כמה עשרות מעצרים, וכן המשטרה הגיעה לחלק מהמוקדים, אבל עדיין ההתנהלות מאוד מאוד איטית. ורק עוד נקודה, נועם, תראה, בהולנד כבר מתחילים לדווח ולדבר על כך.
ליבי אלון, כתבת דסק החוץ שלנו, אנחנו שוב איתך.
This is an anchor saying to the reporter, go ahead, come on, report.
כן, אז ככה, כמה עדכונים, קודם כל על פי משרד החוץ, כרגע יש 3 מנותקי קשר, שלא יצרו קשר עם המשפחות שלהם, וקצת פרטים לגבי טיסות.
First of all, they're still announcing that the Israeli foreign ministry says 3 of the Israelis have not yet made contact. They're not accounted for. As I said, by now they have been accounted for.
החילוץ של פיקוד העורף שיצאו ממש הבוקר להולנד, אז ממש לפני רגעים אחדים יצא המטוס הראשון עם כוח החילוץ הראשון ומצומצם של פיקוד.
Just a few moments ago, she's saying the first evacuation plane, basically the government of Israel sent out several El Al emergency flights. It would mean that in order to get to Holland and load the passengers, the Israelis evacuating, and fly them back, they'd be flying back and arriving after Shabbat begins. Under current laws, rules, and agreements, El Al is not allowed to fly on Shabbat. A lot of things we don't know about Israel. These are one of the lesser known things and seems small. What other country in the world has as its national airline is not allowed to fly on Shabbat? So they actually had to get permission from the chief rabbi of Israel, or one of the two. There's an Ashkenazic and a Sephardic. They had to get permission from the chief rabbi of Israel for El Al to be able to do this evacuation flight and bring them back. And the chief rabbinate ruled it's a matter of pikuach nefesh, saving lives, so it's permitted.
הם יגיעו ראשונים לאמסטרדם כדי לגבש את תמונת המצב. בשעתיים הקרובות בגלל צורך כוח חילוץ נוסף עם מטוס נוסף של חיל האוויר שכולל עשרות אנשים, רובם כמובן כוחות רפואה וחלקם אנשי אבטחה.
And she's saying that there's going to be more than one plane, evacuation plane that's being sent out, and there are people that need special medical care for what's happened. And
בפיקוד העורף אומרים שהם ערוכים לקלוט עד עשרות פצועים. גם יחידת החילוץ הארצית של פיקוד העורף נערכת לתרחיש שבו אין תמונת מצב ברורה.
Tens of people have been severely injured.
והכוחות יידרשו גם לאתר פצועים שמקומם אינו ידוע והמצב שלהם אינו ידוע.
We still don't have all the information about how severe the injuries are.
הם גם נערכים להגיע לבתי החולים בהולנד וללוות את הפצועים בטיסה באוויר. גם חברת ארקיע כבר נערכת לטיסת החילוץ הראשונה שתצא מחר ביום שבת בשעה 7 בבוקר מסחיפול באמסטרדם, וכמובן ארקיע נערכת להוספת טיסות חילוץ נוספות במידת צורך. חשוב להגיד, איתו מדובר על בערך 500 פורעים פרו-פלסטינים, רגע ממה שאני מתחלת מוצאם ממור.
There were more than 500 I don't like to use the word Palestine because no such thing as Palestine. There were more than 500 Arabs as part of this pogrom, primarily people from Morocco and Turkey. Maybe these are Arabs who even may have come, and this is an important part that many of you may not have picked up in the story. People, Europe, even though they're called countries, it's like the United States. In a way, it's almost as though each country in Europe were another one of the states, the way we have 50 states. The idea, for those of you that have been to Europe, you get from England to France to Holland. It's like traveling from California to Missouri. That's the whole idea of the European Union, that it's sort of under one thing. Well, they're all flooded with Arabs now. They've all been flooded, inundated with Muslim Arabs, Muslims and Arabs. Turkey's not Arabic. Iran is not Arabic from ethnicity, but it's Muslim. And so they've been inundated. And the Mossad, you've heard of the Mossad, that's Israel's CIA. Well, CIA is America's Mossad. They're intelligent, they're international, outside of Israel intelligence, had informed the Dutch government this was going to happen because Mossad's intelligence services picked up off social media. They saw activity on social media that Arabs and Muslims throughout Europe were planning and advising to show up on this day at this location where we have something going on. And they warned the Dutch, and the Dutch didn't take it seriously enough, and they didn't prepare at all. And so but the Israeli Mossad knew it was coming. And so what she's saying is these are not only Turkish, Moroccan, Iranian people who have moved to Holland, but it seems they also came from nearby European countries as well. This is what's going on in Europe. If you've been to Europe or you've read about it, Europe is not what Europe was, and they don't know what's coming for them. In 20 to 30 years, the non-Jews of France and England are going to be begging Israel for the right to move in. They're going to be asking for asylum. That it's out of control, the amount of Muslims and Arabs, and that's why there are those in the United States. That's why Trump wanted his first term to have a thing about people from 5 countries, not all Arab countries, but 5 particular anti-American countries. Trump wanted them banned from coming to the United States. You may remember. And then there were those who fought it, and they got their judges in the Ninth Circuit. And then the media turned it into anti-Arab. It was never anti-Arab. Those 5 countries included non-Arab countries, and certainly did not include all the 20 plus Arab countries, but it was 5 particular countries, and you don't want those people here in the United States. And this is what happens when you allow them in without sufficient vetting, and you just decide it's the humanitarian thing to do.
עקבו אחרי הטיסות, תל אביב ככל הנראה, הם בדקו שהם נחתו, ליוו אותם לצורך העניין, מהשדה תעופה כבר הרגע שהם נחתו לבתי המלון, הם נערכו לפעולה הזאת במשך יומיים.
It appears that people actually were at the Dutch airport waiting for certain flights coming in from Tel Aviv. You know how it shows in the airports on the big screen, departing from here, arriving there? They were looked at, the assembled group of Arabs and Muslims were at the airport knowing which gates the flights coming in from Tel Aviv were. They watched them come in and they followed the arriving passengers to see where they were going, understood that they're probably all going to the same hotel or two. That it wasn't like individuals on vacation going wherever, but rather it's like a group of 3,000 people. So they were all going to the same area. So they followed them to the hotels, knowing where to, and then hours and hours, maybe a day later, while the Israelis are coming back from the soccer game, the Arabs and Muslims gathered at those hotels waiting for them. That's why if you look carefully, all the video of the pogrom, you see the on top, the array of electric lights that you would see as you're entering a hotel at night.
אנחנו רואים כבר דיווחים לא על הלינץ' בסדר גודל כזה, אבל אנחנו ראינו כבר אלימות כלפי אוהדים ביומיים האחרונים שם, ואתמול ביומיים זה התפוצץ לאירוע הרבה יותר שתיארנו לעצמנו.
She's saying that we saw that the violence was beginning and it was going to become bigger and bigger and finally exploded.
ואנחנו כמובן נמשיך.
The sound will start in a moment on this. This is, he's going into the situation room. Again, the sound will go on. Look, our first objective is to locate the missing Israelis.
לפי מה שאני מבין, אין כרגע שום אינדיקציה של ניסיון חטיפה.
From what I understand presently, and this of course a few days ago, it does not appear that there actually was the taking of kidnapping of hostages.
או פגיעה פיזית שמונעת מהם להתקשר, אבל זה לא אומר שזה נכון. לכן קודם כל...
But on the other hand, I cannot say that based on those early reports that there was not a hostage taking.
צריך לאתר אותם, להביא אותם. הדבר השני...
So first of all, we have to find them.
שאנחנו צריכים לעשות זה באמת לאפשר לכל מי שרוצה לחזור לארץ בהקדם.
Second, we have to act to immediately bring back to Israel anybody who wants to come back immediately.
הדבר השלישי זה כמובן להתארגן לאפשרויות אחרות. יש משחקי כדורגל אחרים באירופה.
And third, we now have to also organize security and defenses because our Israeli soccer teams have other scheduled games elsewhere in Europe. This was Maccabi Tel Aviv, sort of an Israeli soccer league where they have different teams in a league. And this is like one of the teams, like the Boston Red Sox going to London to play the Yankees for a game, or even more accurately, it's like the Yankees or the LA Dodgers going to London to play a local London team. But now they've got coming up in France a game of the Israeli national soccer team. It would be like an all-star team of baseball flying now to, let's say, Paris to play the local Paris baseball team, if there was such a thing. So he's saying we have to find the people that we can't find. We have to evacuate everyone who needs to be evacuated, wants to be. And thirdly, we have to immediately focus on the upcoming game in France and anywhere else we're going to be playing in Europe, whether it's our soccer team or our national basketball team.
כדורסל ואירועים אחרים שצריך לחשוב עליהם. אני הנחיתי את ראש המוסד וגורמים אחרים להכין את דרכי הפעולה שלנו.
And we have to give thought to all of that. I've asked the Mossad to report to me what their intelligence recommendations are.
ההתראה שלנו וההתארגנות שלנו למצב חדש. יש פה מצב חדש, ישן.
This is a new thing we have never experienced before, and yet it is the oldest thing we have experienced.
לפני 86 שנים מחר.
86 years ago, tomorrow, again, he's speaking 2 days ago. So this is a new thing we of Israel have not experienced before, of having our Jewish people beaten up in the streets of Europe, and yet it's the oldest thing we ever have experienced. Tomorrow, 86 years ago, was the night of the broken glass.
יהודים על אדמת אירופה. זה חזר עכשיו. אתמול ציינו את זה ברחובות אמסטרדם, זה מה שקרה. זה היה
It's on the streets of Amsterdam.
ליל דולח כזה. יש רק הבדל אחד, בינתיים קמה מדינת היהודים. ואנחנו צריכים לטפל בזה. אני דיברתי עם סחוף, עם ראש דיק סחוף, ראש ממשלת...
I've spoken with the Prime Minister, Richard or Dick Koof, or Skoof, of the Netherlands.
הולנד. קודם כל בתחילת הלילה ביקשתי למצוא אותו, כשנודע לי האירוע, אז דיברנו עם הגורמים השונים, אבל השגתי אותו ב7 בבוקר, ומה שביקשתי ממנו, קודם כל הוא אמר
I finally got him on the phone 7 in the morning, and the first thing he said was,
שהוא רואה את זה כתקרית אנטישמית חמורה.
He said this is a horrific anti-Semitic eruption.
ואני אומר, הוא צודק.
I told him you're absolutely right.
אנטישמית קשה ביותר, זה לא תגרה בין אוהדים, זה התארגנות לפגוע ביהודים, ומי יודע גרוע מזה.
This clearly was a pre-organized anti-Semitic pogrom to attack Jews.
על ידי גורמים אנטישמיים, רדיקליים, והדבר הזה קודם כל מעמיד אותנו ואותם, גם את המדינות החופשיות, את הולנד, בסכנה, זה לא מסכן.
And I told him this is not only creating a danger for us, but I have news for you. You've got a problem for yourselves. There's a danger for yourselves. First of all, we want to deal with the danger it causes us. But you've got a problem coming up for yourselves. We will not accept it, I told him. We demand a maximum response.
מעבר לזה שרוצים לשמור על האנשים שלנו, לטפל בהם, לאפשר להם חזרה מסודרת לארץ, יש גם חשיבות להגן על הקהילה היהודית.
And we also told him we want him to be sure to provide security for the Dutch, Amsterdam, Holland Jewish population.
שמנו הבטיח לעשות את זה. הדבר השני, למצות את הדין עם הפורעים.
And secondly, I told him I want him to apply justice, to bring the rioters to justice.
ואני מבקש ממך לעקוב ולדרוש את הדבר הזה בצורה הכי מסודרת, וזה לא עובר לסדר היום. יש מצלמות, יש מודיעין, יש כל האמצעים.
And we demand that this be taken care of. There are photographs of the people that did it last night. There are pictures, and we want this top priority.
למצות את הדין עם הפורעים, זה צריך להיות תנאי הכרחי. והדבר הבא זה כמובן סידורי הביטחון החדשים, לאור המצב כרגע שאנחנו נמצאים בו בעולם, של ניסיון לפיגוע גם פרטני וגם קיבוצי ביהודים ובישראלים, אנחנו נוציא את ההנחיות בהתאם. ואני מבקש כמובן לעשות כל הפעולה כרגע, לאתר את הנעדרים ולהחזיר.
We demand to be handled right now. We continue with the next.
את הישראלים בהתאם למה שמתרחש.
Some alarming scenes unfolding in the Netherlands overnight as Israeli soccer fans were attacked at multiple locations in Amsterdam. At least 62 people have been arrested and 5 people hospitalized. As Remy Inocencio reports, this comes amid anger over the war in Gaza. We have to warn you here, a heads up, this report contains some pretty graphic images.
For the children! I'll give you my money! Free Palestine now!
Cowering on the ground, an Israeli soccer fan apparently terrorized.
Take my money! You want to kill kids?
His attacker yelling, "For the kids! Free Palestine." This unverified social media video claims to be from Amsterdam last night. This night of violence marked by multiple attacks, groups of men beating other men after a football game between a visiting Israeli team and a local club. Called anti-Semitic by Dutch leaders and Israeli officials, police told fans to hide.
It was really terrifying.
In the run-up to the game, there were clashes between Israeli fans and pro-Palestinian.
I want to emphasize again, I'm not politically correct. And I think everybody in our group knows, plus the people who watch this on YouTube, my selling point is not being politically correct. And I'm not afraid, and I don't hesitate to offend, not as a shock jock or someone like that fool at the Trump rally who just likes to insult people, but I call it as I know it. If America ever gets this kind of percent of the population, Arab Muslim, America's going to have this on its streets. There are data, I've seen these data in the past, that countries that have small numbers of Muslims and Arabs, they're absolutely lovely people, and they're just like everyone else. And when the population reaches a certain amount, the overall community changes. The nice, good people are nice and good, but especially their younger people start assuming that those streets belong to them. That is exactly what Trump was trying to prevent when he made that rule, when he first came in that executive order. And as with so much else to do with Trump, the media turned it into a complete lie. And part of that ongoing effort to make him seem like Hitler. And they made it seem like an anti-Arab order. It was never an anti-Arab order. It did not apply to 80 or 90% of the Arab countries. It applied to a few specific countries and to some non-Arab countries to prevent this from happening. And this is going on. And God forbid this happens to America. It'll be good for Israel because even more Jews will start coming.
Palestinian protesters, pro-Israel supporters.
We are used in Amsterdam that there can be tensions. There are many demonstrations and protests, and we are always prepared for them. And of course, they are related to the situation in the Middle East and the ongoing war in Israel and Palestine. But what happened last night is not a protest. It has nothing to do with protest or demonstration. It was crime.
Let's say that I'm ashamed that this happened in the Netherlands, and it's a terrible anti-Semitic attack, and we will not tolerate, and we will prosecute the perpetrators, and I'm deeply ashamed.
That's the prime minister. That's the prime minister that Netanyahu spoke with. The previous was the mayor of Amsterdam.
We will prosecute the perpetrators, and I'm deeply ashamed that it could happen in the Netherlands in 2024. Well, there are always problems around football matches, and football match regarding with the Israeli team also has special attention from the police. But the things that happened this evening, of last night, are just terrible, horrific. And as I said, I'm utterly ashamed of that happened in the Netherlands.
And that's the silver lining. I'll get that off. The silver lining, unlike Germany 86 years ago, is that the mayor of the city and the prime minister of the country immediately came forth and condemned what happened and promised they'll do something about it. versus poo-pooing it and saying it wasn't that bad. At least that's the silver lining. Now we have to see what they actually do.
At the Anne Frank House, visitors learn the story of 8.
And finally, on this part of our morning program, a reminder on this Kristallnacht and thinking of Holland and Amsterdam and the Netherlands, take out a few moments to remember the history in this place.
Jews who, in 1942, went into hiding. They went behind this secret swinging bookcase, into the attic above a shop, and hid, almost silently, for 2 years. Among them was 13-year-old Anne, whose journal has inspired millions of people. You'll see how Anne's father, Otto, tracked the progress of the Allies after D-Day, and pencil lines tracking how Anne and her sister were growing up in hiding. Anne's room is still decorated with photos and magazine clippings, showing the idols, dreams, and passions of a 13-year-old girl. A small window letting in a splash of the outside world lifted her spirits. Then, one fateful day, the Gestapo came. All 8 were deported, sent east to concentration camps. Only her father survived. Anne died just weeks before the end of the war. Her handwritten diary inspires visitors, and her book has been translated into 70 languages. Visiting the Anne Frank House humanizes the horror of the Holocaust through the story of just one of 6 million victims.
And if you've never been there, I have never been there. This is the waiting line to go among visitors to see the Anne Frank House.
Please smile, you've been filmed. Yep. Smile and
I'll bet you didn't realize it extends that long.
wave. Attempt you were having fun.
I bet you didn't know this.
Oh my goodness.
And now we do the last part of this segment, and then the other major segment will be Israeli reactions, primarily Israeli reactions to the election of Tuesday. So it's a longer program today. If you have other plans, I'm letting you know in advance. We're probably going to run closer to 1 o'clock than 12:30. We had 3 major subjects: Kristallnacht, the pogrom in Amsterdam, and the American elections as covered in Israel. I'll get to that more in a second. This is the last part of the Holland pogrom. And this brings the Anne Frank, Kristallnacht, and the Holland pogrom together. Israeli news found a woman in Amsterdam who, when she heard the other night about the pogrom, opened her house to Jews who wanted to hide. And when I heard that, I mean, I just lost it.
הולנדית שמצטרפת אלינו מאמסטרדם. Esther, hello, thank you for joining us. I will translate you into Hebrew with your permission. Hello.
שבוע טוב.
שבוע טוב. So can you tell me in what situation or at what point are you finding yourself opening your house to Israelis for shelter?
Well, that was a non-brainer. Of course you do. We have an app in Amsterdam, and immediately I said, I heard explosions around my house. I live in the city center, 100 meters from the Anne Frank house. And I just said, if any Israeli feels insecure, come to my address. And they did. Not only through me and through just saying that on the app, but also my colleague, Bart Schut, he is my deputy. He drove all the way to Amsterdam to pick up Israelis in distress to bring them to my house.
Yes, אומרת לנו אסתר, אני שמעתי פיצוצים, אני הבנתי מה קורה, אני נמצאת במרחק 100 מטרים מהבית של אנה פרנק, וברגע שהבנתי מה קורה, קרה...
The lady on the right, the reporter for Channel 14, is not talking to the lady on the left. Rather, after the lady on the left spoke in English explaining what she did, the journalist on the right is translating it all into Hebrew for the viewers.
קראתי למי שיכול להגיע לבית שלי, להסתתר אצלי בבית, and then you're finding yourself opening your door to how many Israelis?
It was on and off, but at the last point it was 6, and they were really scared. They were stressed out, and they just knew that here they were safe, so they could breathe.
כן, שאלתי את אסתר בעצם לכמה ישראלים היא נתנה מסתור, היא נתנה מקלט, היא אמרה, זה היה און ואוף, הגיעו ויצאו ישראלים, בסך הכל 6 שהגיעו לכאן ויכלו סוף סוף לנשום. Tell me, Esther, what is your take on the way that the Dutch police was behaving towards these horrendous events?
Well, in the best case, they were underestimating the situation again. This is the 3rd time that happens. The first time was in March 10th with the opening of the Holocaust Museum, which was dreadful. People were shouting in the streets, Holocaust survivors and little children had to pass along very fanatic pro-Palestinian protesters. There was another situation on the 7th of October when a memorial was taken down and was attacked. And this is the 3rd time, and this time it really became physical. That is the real worry here. This time it's really physical, and it's very clear that the police aren't up to it.
Mm-hmm. כן, שאלתי את אסתר בעצם מה היא חושבת על ההתנהלות של המשטרה, על העובדה שהיא לא נערכה לאירוע הזה, ואומרת אסתר, זה לא הפעם הראשונה שהם הגיעו לא ערוכים, הפעם האחרונה ש...
I belong to the last group. I'm very angry. The older people have fear and are sad. I don't think on a short notice this will get better here in the Netherlands. I have to say, I'm sorry.
וואו, שאלתי את אסתר איך מרגישה הקהילה היהודית לאור המאורעות האחרונים, והאם הם פוחדים שהדבר הזה יגדל. אסתר Wout from Amsterdam, I want to thank you for this interview, and I want to thank you, for opening your house and sheltering Israelis at your house.
Of course.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Oh,
no, this 22-year-old...
I mean, that's the story of the Holocaust, a small number of righteous Gentiles who hid Jews in their homes. And that's back to the Anne Frank story. Okay, now we move to Chicago. So it's not only there, it's also here. Arab Muslim who came into the country illegally because of the open, porous borders. A terrorist came to the country intending to kill Jews. And he worked his way to Chicago, and he shot a Jew. Thank God, Jew wasn't killed.
Suspect is not from Chicago. Immigration and Customs Enforcement tells me he is a Mauritanian national who was first encountered in the country last year, and that is why we are now seeing federal agencies involved in this investigation. The investigation continues.
Again, pick up that. He was encountered last year. So he already is in the files, and he wasn't thrown out of the country.
Continues tonight into Sidi Mohammed Abdullahi, the suspect accused of shooting an Orthodox Jewish man in West Rogers Park. Chicago police announced new terrorism and hate crime charges against him Thursday, as they say evidence on Abdullahi's phone indicated he planned to attack people of Jewish faith. Now ICE is involved in the investigation, telling ABC7 it has requested a removal detainer on the suspect, meaning the agency must be notified if he's going to be released.
And you'll remember how sanctuary cities, they give instructions to the local police authorities that they may not cooperate with ICE. This is what's been going on in the country for the last 4 years.
We know he's not from Chicago, but establishing addresses, residencies, when he got here, all of those things are things that we continue to work on.
Abdullahi has not appeared in court yet, as he remains in the ICU for injuries suffered in a shootout with police, which happened just 20 minutes after he shot a 39-year-old man near North Washtenaw Avenue. ICE confirms Abdullahi is a Mauritanian national and was first found by U.S. Border Patrol in March of 2023 near San Isidro, California. Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox says her team is not ready to comment on the immigration status of the suspect.
At the next court date, it is our intention, as we had just 2 days ago, to do a full recitation of.
She is a George Soros district attorney. She won her election with George Soros money. She's not prepared to, at that point, comment, but it already was in the news media that he was an illegal who's been here for 1.5 years.
Of the proffer, which will include that level of detail in which we described earlier today. So we will make that information available next week.
While local authorities continue to work with federal agencies in the investigation, Chicago police do not believe there is a wider threat of terrorism in play here.
The evidence that we have right now says that he was working alone. So we don't want anybody out there in fear that, there's a network of people out there engaged in this activity.
Abdullahi is due back in court next week. Pending his condition in the hospital, we could also still see additional federal charges come into play here as this investigation continues.
Watch breaking news on YouTube. Subscribe to ABC7 Chicago Eyewitness News.
A shooting in a West Rogers Park neighborhood Saturday morning caught on camera. Chicago police say 22-year-old Sidi Mohammed Abdullahi shot a man, then turned on law enforcement and medics responding to the scene and shot at them.
During the shooting, the offender approached a 39-year-old male and shot him in the shoulder without saying a word.
That victim was a 39-year-old Jewish man walking to synagogue.
This act of violence, a man wearing, the kippah as he was walking to synagogue, was shot, and this has just escalated our anxiety.
Alderman Deborah Silverstein attends the same synagogue and says she's disappointed the state's attorney's office hasn't charged it as a hate crime. CPD says they aren't ruling it out, but need more evidence made difficult because the suspect is still in the hospital following.
You got that. Eventually, under nationwide Jewish pressure, that changed. But they would not call it a hate crime because they had no grounds to think that Mohammed Abdullahi from Mauritania, or wherever the heck he came from, shooting an Orthodox guy in Chicago, they had no way to assume that that's a hate crime.
Following the shootout.
At the end of the day, it's as traumatic whether or not it gets that terminology of being a hate crime.
Rabbi Shlomo Soroka of the Agudath Israel of Illinois says the community is distressed.
My family lives here. My community lives here. We are visibly Orthodox. We are visibly Jewish. And that puts a target on our backs.
And others in the neighborhood who are not Jewish also feel on edge.
I mean, it's really concerning, that level of whatever the motivation was.
Mike McGuire heard the shooting while on a walk.
We saw the EMS pulling down Farwell.
I would say that there's a lot of anxiety in the community.
There's a detention hearing set for Tuesday morning in this case.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories.
All right, thank you very much. We will, before we return back to our order of business, I do think it's appropriate just to take a moment, if you can just bear with me, if we can just have order in the chamber just for a couple more seconds. All right, thank you. I believe it's important that we just bring up at this moment the recent horrific shooting of a visibly Jewish member of the West Rogers Park Jewish community as he was on his way to synagogue, a place of worship and a place of sanctity. And the members of the Chicago Police Department, the shooter also attempted to harm. And so the shooting of this visibly Jewish member, as well as the shooting of a Chicago Police Department, or at least the attempt to harm, I want to reaffirm our support for the Jewish community and the ultimate condemnation of the anti-Semitism that is moving about in the city of Chicago and around the world. You have, as a community, my commitment, along with the superintendent, that we will bring all of the necessary resources to bear to address this act or acts of violence and to ensure that justice is done to the fullest possible degree as the investigation continues. Let it be a constant reminder of why we have to remain committed and vigilant of protecting our way of freedom.
Robin, Cheryl, those two injured students, we are told.
Meanwhile, in Chicago area, DePaul University this week, 2 Jewish students were beaten up.
Declined medical treatment, but the university is now working with Chicago police to determine if a hate crime was committed here. In a message on DePaul's website,
if a black person gets beaten up, even a black person who's beaten up because he owes somebody money, if an Arab gets beaten up on the streets, likewise, without even knowing he's an Arab, just because somebody's committing a crime, right away everybody calls it out: racism, Islamophobia, hate crime. But it always works out that when Jews are beaten up, the first reaction is, we are not prepared to call it a hate crime. The fact that a guy yells, Allahu Akbar, and he's a Muslim Arab, illegal, and he comes from out of nowhere to shoot a visibly Orthodox Jew, we don't know whether that's a hate crime. Did he go after Jews on campus? Oh, students get beaten up on campus every day, right?
School says that around 3:20 this afternoon, 2 DePaul students who were Jewish were punched by attackers who were wearing masks in front of the Student Center here at Belden and Sheffield. This occurred while those students were visibly showing their support for Israel, according to the school, which didn't give any more details. The injuries to the students apparently minor, and the university is now working to support them. Chicago police confirm a report was filed, but had no further information on the incident. In a message to students and staff, DePaul's president said, "We are outraged that this occurred on our campus. It is completely unacceptable and a violation of DePaul's values to uphold and care for the dignity of every individual." Again, the university working with Chicago police and asking students to report any acts of violence. Live in Lincoln Park,
2 Jewish students showing support for Israel were attacked in Lincoln Park right on DePaul's campus.
The attack happened outside of the Student Center, and that's where we find our Marissa Perlman, who's live for us with the very latest on this investigation. Good morning, Marissa.
Good morning to both of you. Good to be with you. Yeah, Chicago police now say these were 2 masked attackers who approached these 2 students, punched them before running away. Now, in a statement, we have now heard from the university president about this incident. He says the 2 students, both Jewish, were, quote, visibly showing their support for Israel at the time of the attack, but he didn't mention specifically how. The university sent out a safety alert to students on Wednesday, describing the 2 attackers, adding both of the attackers wore black masks. Now, campus leadership is working with the Chicago Police Department as they determine whether this classifies as a hate crime. Now, University President Robert Manuel said they will work to make campus a safe and welcoming space for everyone in light of the attack. His statement reads in part, "We recognize that for a significant portion of our Jewish community, Israel is a core part of their Jewish identity. Those students and every student should feel safe on our university campus." Now, both of these students were hurt, but did refuse medical attention at the time of the attack. Anyone with information on the attack is asked to call DePaul Campus Police. For now, we're live in Lincoln Park. I'm Marissa Perlman.
The I-Team first met Max Long more than a year after the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel. He was a reserve staff sergeant deployed with Israeli Defense Forces. Since then, the 27-year-old has moved to Chicago and enrolled at DePaul, where he would regularly stand on campus and offer to speak with passersby about the war. Tonight, the student soldier says he and another Jewish student leader were attacked, Long says, by two men wearing ski masks.
Once a week, now that I'm a student at DePaul University, I go to DePaul University with a sign that says, "Come talk about Israel with an IDF soldier." And I try to keep it, as positive as possible. People come up to me, ask me questions, and I'll always answer the questions.
For the past few weeks, the I-Team has been preparing a follow-up news report about Max Long's one-man information campaign here at DePaul, with an Israeli flag and a sign bringing the front line in Gaza to the home front here in Lincoln Park.
I was there. I saw these tunnels under schools, under hospitals.
Yesterday afternoon, Long was here in the same space outside the main student center when he says two men in ski masks hit him from behind. Attackers, police say, then pushed down a 21-year-old Jewish campus leader who was standing with Long. Reserve Staff Sergeant Long had been deployed by the IDF after October 7, 2023, part of a counter-explosive unit. This summer, when he moved to Chicago and DePaul, this became his new theater of operation. Armed with words instead of weapons, Long engaged students and staff as they passed by, explaining his firsthand view of what is happening in Israel.
I'm not a politician. I'll never give a political answer. I'm not a spokesperson for the IDF. I'm a spokesperson for my own story. I'm doing a disservice if I'm ignoring the Palestinian narrative. And that's really important to me, is to fully understand it and understand where there's a place to bridge these and align ourselves to a better future, because this has to end.
DePaul University officials say they're working with Chicago police now to determine whether this incident should be classified as a hate crime because two Jewish students were targeted. DePaul's president this afternoon calling the incident outrageous. Also now a statement from DePaul Students for Justice in Palestine claiming the university should have taken steps to de-escalate campus anger and, they say, ensure safety for all.
Watch breaking news on YouTube. Subscribe to ABC News.
And the police say they determined the attacks to be a hate crime because one of the suspects used anti-Semitic remarks before hitting one of the victims. That victim, the I-Team has learned, is a reservist with the Israeli army.
New images from Chicago police show two men wanted in connection with an attack on two Jewish students at DePaul University. Investigators now calling that attack a hate crime. Police say it happened Wednesday afternoon near the student center while the students were visibly showing support for Israel. During the incident, investigators say one of the suspects made anti-Semitic remarks before repeatedly striking a victim.
I was there. I saw these tunnels under schools, under hospitals.
The I-Team has learned that victim is 27-year-old Max Long, a reservist with the Israel Army. Long says two men with ski masks ambushed him, hit him, and pushed another Jewish campus leader to the ground before running off. Both victims were injured. Staff Sergeant Long was called to duty to Israel in the wake of the
like how do you what set of actions result in the greater good in Israel? I mean, obviously you cannot have people who, if they want to slaughter everyone in Israel, you got to stop that. There's no way. Those people either need to be killed or incarcerated, or they will simply try to kill more Israelis. This is what it amounts to, obviously. And they want to kill Americans too, by the way. Generally, Israel is referred to as the little Satan in America. We are the big Satan. That's what the Ayatollah calls us. So, so I think, I think a lot of what's happening there is people are being taught to hate, in Gaza from when they're children. They're taught to hate, and that's really the thing that needs to stop for there to be, long-term peace. Hopefully, is that you just cannot have the kids be taught to hate from the moment they can talk. That's fundamental. So, yeah. So, so I think there's it's kind of a three-step process there, which is, you've mentioned, one has to do the difficult thing, which is to, yes, eliminate Hamas, exactly, and then, I think also going forward, anyone who's teaching hatred in Gaza or elsewhere, they need to stop doing that. That can't be acceptable. We have to stop, kids being taught to hate America in America. So, and then the third thing that's also very important is that there has to be economic prosperity in Gaza. So this is very difficult. It's like, how do you sort of, after terrible things have been done, you then have to sort of, you have to bring prosperity to Gaza, and that's the thing that will ensure, provided kids are not taught to hate and there's long-term prosperity, I think there will be peace in Gaza. And we see an example of that after World War II, where with Germany and Japan, they were defeated. They obviously did terrible things, but changed the education system. And unlike World War I, we helped rebuild Japan and Germany. The Marshall Plan. Instead of exacting vengeance, America insisted, we're going to help rebuild Germany, we're going to help rebuild Japan, and now they're our allies. And there's been no war ever since.
So as I said, we're now going into the...
Hey everyone, so Elon Musk was
We're now finally going into Israeli news media coverage of the election. And this will be the last segment for today. It's a longer program because there have been three incredibly important events, primarily the unprecedented street pogrom in Europe and the American election. And it was fascinating. I think many of you will be surprised to see how it was reported in Israel. This is Channel 14. There will also be from Channel 11, the PBS news station, the public broadcasting. We're going to have some stuff from there too. This is just a quick compilation by one reporter. Anyway, let's see what happens.
Getting to the end, and we're leading in all the polls, so that's a good thing. We better keep it going like...
בעוד 8 ימים זה קורה. היום שבו יוכרע מי יהיה הנשיא או הנשיאה הבאה של...
It's been going on 8 days since Madison Square Garden, and today is the day that they're going to finally decide.
מעצמה החשובה ביותר בעולם.
We are going...
The election in the world's strongest world power.
Going to win New York.
אמש, טראמפ הגשים חלום, גם להופיע במדינה הדמוקרטית ניו יורק.
Yesterday, Trump presented his dream that he's even going to win New York. He spoke at Madison Square Garden.
וגם להופיע באולם המדיסון סקוואר גארדן. אחד האולמות המפורסמים בעולם, המקום שבו מופיעים בעיקר כוכבי על. בתוך האולם התאספו כ-20,000 תומכים. עשרות אלפים נותרו בחוץ ומילאו את רחובות ניו יורק הסמוכים למקום האירוע.
So the way they're reporting it, they're focusing on there were 20,000 people, and there were street-long lines outside waiting to get in, and there was that. And then they have some of the speakers.
Hearts together with a shared vision.
Wars and weakness on the world stage.
Ronald Reagan said, We have to be there for Israel always.
הסקרים ממשיכים להיות צמודים. מלבד
This is again a few days before the election. The polls, you see, we're going to see in a moment how central this election is in the minds of so many Israelis. The idea being, let me just make this point. The idea being, when there are elections in France, how much coverage and time do we pay attention to it in America? The night before in the national news, they'll say, tomorrow France goes to the polls. And the next day, France went to the polls and they elected some French guy. And next week, tomorrow, England goes to the polls. And the next day, there's been a shakeup in the British government. When America goes to the polls, in Israel, the coverage is much, much more extensive. How much more extensive? They actually preempt all television on all the stations for like 8 hours, just as they did in America, just as all the stations in America were doing online, ongoing election coverage. That's what went on in Israel. I'll show you. I can't show you 8 hours of it, but I'll give you a flavor of it in a little while. We continue. So they were paying enormous attention because the future of Israel, look, the future of Israel is in the hands of God. Don't ever forget that. God can give Israel great times, no matter who the American president is. And God is God. Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yamloch Lilam Va'ed. But to the degree that one has to act based on his and her understanding, that God helps those who help themselves, right? We believe in God, but even the holiest rabbi still goes to the doctor if he's sick, to the hospital. You don't just say, well, we're not Seventh-day Adventists or Christian Scientists. You have to do what you have to do. A person has to go to work if they want to earn money and pay their bills. So you have to do what you have to do. And that's why they take this so seriously. And we're going to see really how seriously they take it back to this. Okay.
שני הסקרים הארציים של CBS ו-ABC אתמול שחזו יתרון קל להריס. 4 סקרים ארציים אחרים הצביעו לכאורה על התחזקות של טראמפ. בניו יורק טיימס וב-CNN טראמפ סגר את הפער וכעת קיים שוויון. ואילו ב-CNBC טראמפ מוביל על הריס ב2% ובוול...
So they're telling you all 6 or 8 major polls. The people in Israel are following these polls.
סטריט ג'ורנל ב3% עם 49% למול 46%. נראה שעל אף שהריס מגייסת משפיענים וכוכבי על כמו ביונסה וטיילור סוויפט וגם את הנשיא לשעבר ברק אובמה ורעייתו מישל, היא איבדה רבים מהבוחרים ממוצא ערבי.
So Israelis know from Taylor Swift and the 2 Obamas and that crowd. So they're telling the Israelis, here's what's going on. And on the other hand, they're pointing out that there was an Arab guy speaking at the Maddow.
Good afternoon, Michiganders. He promises peace.
וטראמפ מצידו ממשיך להתמיד ולתמוך.
Support Israel's right to win its war on terror. You have to support that.
הריס ממשיכה לחפור לעצמה בורות כשהפעם השוותה את טראמפ להיטלר.
And then the reporter says, meanwhile, Harris continued digging herself deeper into a hole, a pit, by comparing Trump to Hitler. No one will better understand. Too many average Americans have no clue what Hitler means. They have no clue how absurd the comparison and the metaphor or simile. In Israel, they understand how idiotic that is and how much of a lie.
It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler.
והקמפיין של טראמפ פונה לה בתגובה עם סרטון של ניצול שואה בן 94.
So the report is saying Trump responded by putting out an ad in which they feature a 94-year-old guy.
For her to accuse President Trump of being like Hitler is the worst thing I've ever heard.
יותר מ-40 מיליון אמריקאים כבר יצאו להצביע בבחירות המוקדמות. הדרמה בעיצומה, והכל עדיין פתוח במרוץ הצמוד לבית הלבן.
More than 40 million already have voted, and it's very tight. And and this is a report on the return of the Trump. Channel 11 is left of center. It's public broadcasting. And this is titled The Return of the Trumpists, of the Trump supporters. Those who voted for Trump in the past are absorbed or planted in the hope that he will win again.
Trump, buddy. Trump. John's like, what? Baby, me what?
Are you gonna vote for Trump?
I'm voting for Trump.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I'm voting for Trump because Trump been here.
Man, make America good again, man.
That's all we need to know.
Make America good again. We vote for Trump.
Again, this is what Israelis would be watching on the Channel 11 news as they're trying to convey to Israelis what's going on in America.
כבר משעות אחר הצהריים משתרך תור לאורך יותר מקילומטר סביב אולם הכנסים בעיר אלנטאון בפנסילבניה.
This was election day, and he's saying here at 12 noon, look at the lines in Allentown, Pennsylvania, people wanting to vote.
How long have you been standing in the line here?
About 2 hours.
For 2 hours.
2 hours.
אלפי אנשים עמדו כאן שעות כדי להיכנס לראות את דונלד טראמפ בעצרת הקמפיין 7.
Oh, so this is not election day. This is the last Trump rally in Allentown. And he's saying, here I am, 12 noon. Trump will be speaking tonight, and people have been in line 2 hours, and he's interviewing people waiting to get into the Trump rally.
7 ימים לפני הבחירות.
7 days.
We are from Israeli TV.
Oh, we are for Israel. When Trump gets in office, he will help. You will get all the help you need.
אין מקום נעים יותר בימים אלה להזדהות כישראלי מבעצרת בחירות של דונלד טראמפ.
Oh, we love Israel, man. Yeah.
ברנדה ובן זוגה נסעו שעתיים מביתם בדרום מזרח המדינה רק כדי להגיע לעצרת. Do you think Trump had a chance?
Now, this person, again, she's come from the other side of the state just to see Trump.
This time?
I think Trump will win Pennsylvania.
Why?
Because people of Pennsylvania and all of the United States are so sick of the Biden policies.
Like what?
I'm a family of 2. My husband and I, we pay $250 a week for groceries. You go to the gas station, you fill up your car. It's twice as much. And what did Biden do? He doesn't do anything. He didn't do anything for 4 years, and she was with him. And she didn't do anything. So, yeah, he's going to take Pennsylvania.
זה שנלחם את מלחמתם נגד האליטות והממסד.
It was a registered Republican who tried to shoot Trump.
I don't believe that.
No?
Nah. I don't believe that at all.
What do you mean? That it was reported that
I don't care. If the mainstream media said it, don't believe it.
What do you think will be the results here in Pennsylvania after Biden won here in 2020?
It went down. I lost my job.
Trump 2024! Trump 2024! Trump 2024!
Now, this station is giving a background context. Here's what just happened recently at Madison Square Garden.
בימים האחרונים סוערת אמריקה בעקבות האמירה של אחד הנואמים בעצרת של...
And he's saying that America's been all like scandalized by one of the speeches at the Trump gathering in Madison Square Garden the other day.
טראמפ בניו יורק, שם אמר כי פורטו ריקו היא אי של זבל.
One of the spokespeople said that Puerto Rico is an island of garbage.
Literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
I'm voting for the felon, guys.
יצא כך שדווקא באזור הזה של פנסילבניה יש קהילה גדולה מאוד של פורטוריקנים.
Now it happens to be that in this particular part of Pennsylvania, Allentown, there's a huge population of Puerto Ricans.
הקמפיין של טראמפ עסוק בכיבוי השרפה הזו, בין היתר.
And the Trump campaign is engaged in trying to put out that fire.
עלו כאן לבמה הסנטורית מפורטו ריקו, והסנטור ממוצא היספני, מרקו רוביו הפופולרי, שדיבר אל הקהל.
So they brought Marco Rubio and Hispanic to speak to the assemblage, I think in Spanish.
ספרדית.
Porque hemos llegado a ese momento en una campaña sumamente importante. Una campaña de gran importancia para el futuro de este país y para el futuro de su familia.
בעוד דקות אחדות
טראמפ עולה פה לבמה, האולם מלא.
So he's just reporting, and then let's see, there's more about the Trump rally. We'll skip that. We're just trying to give you a feeling of what they were telling Israel.
בעלה מייק עומדים כאן בתור בכניסה לאולם. שניהם מפורטו ריקו, שניהם תומכים בטראמפ.
When someone on
And so this reporter has located, let's say, a Puerto Rican couple, and they're going to be voting for Trump, notwithstanding what was said at the rally.
stage in a Trump rally say that Puerto Rico is an island of garbage, don't you feel offended that these kind of
Should he
people...
have said it? Absolutely not. Was it the wrong place and the wrong time? Absolutely. But in comedy does stem from some truth. And at the end of the day, there is a problem, issue with garbage in Puerto Rico that we just don't see it. They don't talk about it.
Right.
They don't talk about it.
מול אלפי התומכים של טראמפ עומדים כמה אנשים שמתנגדים לו, שהחליטו לבוא לכאן להפגין את עמדתם בכניסה לעצרת.
We're not trash. We have a beautiful island, beautiful children, beautiful homes. Puerto Rico is everything to me.
אלא שממש באותן דקות הנשיא ביידן דיבר עם קבוצה מתומכיו ואמר שהזבל הם דווקא אלה שתומכים.
And what he's saying is, and then amid all of that, Biden spoke to some people and said that the real garbage are people who support Trump. This is Israelis. It's kind of funny in a way, especially now that the election is over, watching how people on the other side of the ocean, living in a whole different place, it really looks crazy. If you think we're living in the middle of it, and it kind of is outrageous, but it makes sense because we know how America works. If you're outside America, watching what goes on, it really is crazy. You're garbage. No, you're garbage. Well, you're even worse garbage. No, your garbage smells worse. No, your garbage smells worse.
באמירות על פורטו ריקו. והקמפיין של טראמפ, לא פספס את ההזדמנות.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I have breaking news for you, Mr. President. You may not have heard this. Just moments ago, Joe Biden stated that our supporters are garbage. And I hope their campaign is about to apologize for what Joe Biden just said. We are not garbage. We are patriots who love America, and thank you for running.
The thing is, I think on second thought, Israelis could relate to this because you should see what goes on in their campaigns.
אלנטאון, פנסילבניה.
Okay, now.
גבירותיי ורבותיי, הנשיא הבא.
Now it's election night. Channel 14, ladies and gentlemen, or everybody, a revolution. This is Sharon Gal. Sharon is a male Hebrew name also, not just female. And this is the announcement that they're covering the elections in America. And this is the moment where the Americans have announced that Trump won.
של ארצות הברית, 8 בדיוק ו-55 שניות, הוא דונלד טראמפ.
Okay, that's different from the way it is on American TV as they're reporting. I'm telling you, we don't begin to appreciate how much the Israeli public wanted Trump over Harris. There were polls that showed that it was something like 3-1, 4-1. If Israelis are like 70% and more in favor. And when it came in, as the reporting, it speaks for itself. Imagine your favorite news station, whether it's Fox, CNN, CBS, and they announce it and there's that kind of reaction. You don't get that. Not even with Fox. You didn't get that.
אגב, אני מקבל פה באוזניה בבקשה את הפיד.
אתה יודע מי שומר את המפתח בבית הלבן של המטבח הכשר? אתה יודע שבבית הלבן בקדנציה...
Now this guy is saying, this again, Israel covering the elections. He's saying, do you know that the White House is going to have a kosher kitchen? Like, how many Americans were thinking that when it was announced? But that's Yaakov's first reaction. Yaakov Verdugo. Do you know they're going to have a kosher kitchen? Yeah, because Trump maintains one of the White House kitchens kosher so that Ivanka and Jared can eat there.
הקודמת, הכשירו מטבח שלם בגלל הבת שלו, אז המטבח הכשר כנראה יהיו...
4 years ago, when he was president, they made one of their kitchens in the White House kosher because of his daughter and her husband. And his grandchildren.
גם אתה תוכל לאכול שם.
ברוך השם.
שרון, העורך אומר לי בו...
Baruch Hashem, thank God.
אז נראה, מבקשים ממשפחת נתניהו להנמיך את המוזיקה אם אפשר. יש ברחב מספיק רעש, די, תפסיקו.
יכול להיות חברים.
מזל שהם לא רואים את הצבע.
Now they're toasting each other on TV live. They're toasting each other in the news studio for the country. And you remember she's the one that recited the bracha on Shahakol after the fast of the 17th of Tammuz. That's Magi Tabibi.
חברים.
מזל שהם לא רואים את הצבע.
They're all going l'chaim, l'chaim. This is the news. Instead of just, because it's Jewish news, it's real news. So instead of just being people taking happiness or disappointment, they're going l'chaim.
הם לא רואים את הצבע.
לחיים לכולם. לחיי דונלד טראמפ.
God bless America ועם ישראל חי.
עם ישראל חי.
חיים, כן.
גפן, תבוא קדימה.
קדימה.
קדימה, תברך.
ברוך.
So she's saying, wait, you can't drink yet, you have to say a bracha.
אדוני.
אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם.
בורא פרי הגפן.
לחיים, לחיים.
And then the...
חברים.
מזל שהם לא רואים את הצבע.
תודה.
And then as the anchor, her show is going off now. As they're going off the air, having covered the elections, she hands it over to the next show. And they'll be taking it the next segment. And so she's handing it over to him. And here we go.
תודה גם לכם שאתם מצטרפים אלינו, ותודה לכם שאתם פה, ותודה גם לכם שאתם פה, תודה גם לכם מאחורי המצלמה. למה הם שם?
This is their news panel. They don't typically report the news. This is a bunch of like people discussing the day's news, like a commentary panel.
למה הם מאחורי המצלמה? או שאין מקום, או שהם אלופים, בהייטק, בישיבות וכל הדברים האלה. אין לי מושג, גבירותיי ורבותיי. תן לי, אני לא שומע את המוזיקה.
And as you see again, this is the reaction in Israel.
אין מקום, או שהם אלופים, בהייטק, בישיבות וכל הדברים האלה. למה הם מאחורי המצלמה?
So behind the area. Okay, saying to all of our viewers, whether you're in front of the camera, behind the camera, whether you're involved in high tech, or if you're wherever. Let's celebrate with some music. Again, these guys normally run a more sober news discussion over the day's news. And in fact, this is they just heard the news. They're singing, the sound is a little broken up because of all the clapping and everything. Good evening, thank you for coming.
זו אולי לא הפתעת אוקטובר, אבל איש ודאי לא ציפה
This might not have been the October surprise. This is again Channel 11, their public TV. His report, Nathan Goodman. This may not have been the October surprise, but the candidates have ended up, this is before the election, before election night, candidates of all things have ended up debating whether Trump is a Nazi. And this would be very interesting to Israelis.
שבוע לפני הבחירות, המועמדים יעסקו בשאלה הזאת.
No one would have expected that the American election campaign would be devoting a day in the last week to the following question.
I'm not a Nazi. I'm the opposite of a Nazi. I don't know.
ימים אחדים לפני שאזרחי ארצות הברית הולכים לקלפי, דונלד טראמפ מוצא את עצמו נלחם בטענה שהוא חובב נאצים.
Here we are, only days before the election, and Donald Trump finds himself immersed in the question whether he's a Nazi and whether he's Hitler.
מעריץ של היטלר.
She's going out and only criticizing, talking about Hitler and Nazi, and because her record's horrible. Her borders are the worst in the history of the world.
דונלד טראמפ עדיין מתמודד עם הנזק שגרמה עצרת הבחירות שלו בניו יורק ביום ראשון.
There's literally a float.
Now, Trump is still dealing with the problem at the Madison Square Garden with the comedian who made the objectionable, the outrageously horrible words the previous day.
Floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
במחנה של האריס עטים כמובן על ההזדמנות שנפלה לידיהם.
In the Harris camp, they jumped on the opportunity presented to them to portray Trump as a racist.
שבוע לפני הבחירות הם ממקדים את המסר בטענה שטראמפ קיצוני מדי לאמריקה.
Only 1 week before elections, they took advantage to make the point that Trump is extremist and racist.
So the man holds this big rally at Madison Square Garden.
I was wondering about the condescension and arrogance, the way he rubs his ears for some point. It's not itching, and it's just like his way of asserting authority. Very arrogant.
And the warm-up speakers were saying the most, we're trotting out and peddling the most racist, sexist, bigoted stereotypes.
אובמה עובד שעות נוספות בעבור הריס בימים האחרונים, עדות אולי ללחץ בצד הדמוקרטי.
Obama is devoting extra hours for Harris in the end, which is actually indicates, by the way, the reporter is left-wing, Nathan Goodman, so you know where he's coming from. But he's saying it indicates that Obama's out there, indicates that Harris is in trouble, that she's pulling all these people out the last minute to give her backing.
להבנה שלהם שחייבים להמריץ את הבסיס כשהמאבק כל כך צמוד.
The race is so close.
Bruce Springsteen and I'm here today to support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
רק כוכב אחד נעדר מההצהרות של קמלה האריס.
There were a great many stars, celebrities at the concert, and as we all know, they included, they had people like Beyonce and Taylor Swift and Cardi B and all of them. And he says there was only one well-known person missing from that rally, the current serving president.
הנשיא המכהן. ג'ו ביידן הצביע כבר אתמול ואין ספק שהוא בחר בהריס, אבל
Biden voted yesterday undoubtedly for Harris, but her campaign prefers to keep their distance from him.
הקמפיין שלה מעדיפים לשמור מרחק, לא להזכיר לבוחרים את הקשר שלה לביידן.
To avoid voters associating her with Biden when they go to vote.
הריס חוזרת הלילה לוושינגטון לשאת את נאום סיכום הטיעונים שלה, והיא תעשה זאת בדיוק מהמקום שבו נאם טראמפ בשישה.
Harris has come to make her closing speech, and she's chosen the exact location where Trump spoke on the famous, infamous January 6th.
בינואר לפני 4 שנים, וסירב לקבל את תוצאות הבחירות.
And she's running on a campaign of demoralization and really a campaign of destruction. But really, perhaps more than anything else, it's a campaign of hate. It's a campaign of absolute hate.
והמאבק על הקולות.
That's Doug Emhoff, her husband, in civil law. In Jewish law, he's of course not married.
האחרונים שנותרו אינו פוסח גם על הבוחרים היהודיים במדינות המפתח. הדמוקרטים שיגרו את דאג אמהוף, בעלה היהודי של הריס, כדי להזהיר את הבוחרים מהקהילה.
Whenever chaos and cruelty are given a green light, Jew hatred is historically not far behind. And that matters so much today because Donald Trump is nothing if not an agent of chaos and cruelty.
ואילו הרפובליקנים מנסים להגיע
Meanwhile, the Republicans are trying to get the Jewish vote and they ran this advertisement.
בוחרים היהודים באמצעות סרטון שאמור לגעת בלב היהודי שלהם.
What about Kamala? Busy defending the squad.
Ay vey. You know, Trump I never cared for, but at least he'll keep us safe.
ובעוד המועמדים נלחמים על הקולות האחרונים, יותר מ-45 מיליון אמריקנים כבר הצביעו. אתמול
More than 45 million Americans already have voted.
נרשמה תקלה ראשונה כאשר עמדות איסוף למעטפות.
Meanwhile, two ballot boxes were blown up, or fire was set to them in Oregon and Washington State.
ההצבעה המוקדמת הוצתו במערב ארצות הברית, כמה מאות פתקי הצבעה נשרפו. שבוע לבחירות המרוץ הזה צמוד לגמרי, והטיעון
A week before elections, the race is incredibly close.
מכוערים יותר. החשש מהאלימות לפני הבחירות או אחריהן רק גובר.
And there's great fear that there will be violence after the election.
So please let us welcome Mr. Donald J. Trump.
Here, Channel 11 is presenting to the Israeli public reason for concern that in a campaign stop in Dearborn, Michigan, just before the election, Trump went and met with a group of Arab Muslims, stood there as the spokesman for the group, said some really nasty stuff about Israel, and Channel 11 is emphasizing for their viewers that Trump heard it and he did not say anything to disagree with what the spokesman said. And that's what it's saying. Trump הקשיב לביקורת נגד ישראל ושתק. That Trump listened to attack on Israel and said nothing. So they're trying to convey that Trump is whatever they want to convey.
המסע אחר אחרוני הבוחרים במדינות המפתח הוביל אמש את דונלד טראמפ לדירבורן, מישיגן, העיר.
Now Trump is in Dearborn, Michigan, trying to win over another battleground state. The place which has more Arab and Muslims than anywhere else in the United States.
בעלת הריכוז הגבוה ביותר של אמריקנים ממוצא ערבי ומוסלמי בארצות הברית. לתומכיו מקרב הקהילה הערבית אמריקנית, טראמפ מבטיח שיביא שלום למזרח התיכון.
You're going to have peace in the Middle East, and they should have peace in the Middle East, but not with the clowns you have in the Middle East. Let me tell you, what you have people in the Middle East that aren't doing their job, and you have people in the U.S. that aren't doing their job, and when they get it together, when they get it right, you're going to have peace in the Middle East.
מהי תוכניתו של טראמפ לשלום במזרח התיכון? הוא לא אמר. הנשיא לשעבר.
What is Trump's plan for peace in the Middle East? He didn't say.
גם לא הביע הסתייגות
Furthermore, he did not recoil or say anything responsive when he heard Israel attacked. And that's the purpose of Nathan Gutman. As I said, he's very left-wing and wants to portray that don't expect Trump to be all that much of a friend. As opposed to Channel 14, where they were drinking wine and sang brachas and singing.
מארח מתח ביקורת חריפה על פעולות ישראל בעזה.
Can't stand silence when Palestine is being erased. Please help us stop the bloodshed. No amount of money or power should be prioritized over human life. U.S. citizens should decide elections, not foreign entities and biased media sources.
האם השתיקה הזאת של טראמפ עולה בקנה אחד עם התבטאויות אחרות שלו, כשדיבר דווקא אל בוחרים יהודים?
How do we rationalize, asks the reporter, Trump being silent in the face of that attack against Israel? How do we rationalize it when we consider all the pro-Israel things he also says?
ופרו-ישראלים?
Anybody who's Jewish and loves being Jewish and loves Israel is a fool if they vote for a Democrat. By the way, when Trump was president, you had no problems, did you? None. You had no problems. You ever think of that?
המסע אל קו הסיום של הבחירות ממוקד כעת אך ורק במדינות המתנדנדות.
Wow, what a crowd this one is, huh?
אמש מצאו עצמם טראמפ והריס ביחד במילווקי, נאבקים על הקולות של מדינת המפתח וויסקונסין.
Basically, despite America being a huge country with 50 states, all the campaigning is taking place within a very small number of states that are called battleground states. Yesterday, both candidates were in Milwaukee.
האם תהיה זו ויסקונסין שתכריע? אולי פנסילבניה. זו יכולה להיות כל אחת משבע המדינות הצמודות שיכתירו את המנצחים.
Which will decide the election? Will it be Wisconsin? Will it be Pennsylvania?
כי גם עכשיו, 3 ימים לפני הבחירות, הכל אפשרי.
Even now, 3 days before the election, everything is possible.
You can see the polling is so close everywhere, about 2 points tops separating the candidates.
שני המועמדים עוד מקווים שאפשר להזיז בוחרים, בעיקר על ידי הפחדה. טראמפ מנסה להציג את הריס כלא מתאימה לתפקיד וקיצונית בעמדותיה. הריס מציירת את טראמפ כמי שיחריב את הדמוקרטיה האמריקנית.
Candidates are trying to get the final voters, the undecideds, by scaring them. Trump is trying to scare them that Harris is way off the charts extreme. Harris is trying to scare them that Trump will take away their democracy.
והבעיה שכבר צצה עכשיו, ימים ספורים לפני יום הבוחר, היא החשש מהתערבות זרה, כמו הסרטון המזויף הזה שהפיצו משתמשים רוסיים, ואשר...
Complicating everything was a Russian falsified, forged video that was put on social media showing Haitians, illegal immigrants, either tearing up or voting with ballots to create chaos.
Nora, the U.S. intelligence community has assessed that Russian influence actors are behind this Moscow-manufactured video spreading across social media, claiming that a group of Haitians illegally voted for Vice President Kamala Harris in Georgia.
החשש הזה, יחד עם טענות, רובן מופרכות לזיופים ואי סדרים, נועדו לערער את אמון הבוחרים במערכת ולזרוע כאוס.
The purpose of all of this is to convey to the Americans that you cannot be sure that the votes are being counted honestly, with the goal of sowing chaos in America.
טיים ללא הצלחה, אבל הניסיונות יימשכו עד ליום שלישי וגם אחר כך.
Back in the day when
Just going to take that one off. Hold on. Let's see which one.
So please let us welcome Mr. Donald J. Trump.
גוטמן, וושינגטון.
Back in the day when I was on...
And then this one will do it 40 seconds. Now, amid all of that, Trump, of course, got elected. And these were some of the responses to his election.
Look at this.
Hey there. How are you doing? If you watch the show regularly, I'm guessing you're not doing great. Yeah, me neither.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate. It was a terrible night for poor people, for our allies.
We're just presenting this balance. There was the Israeli representation was so overwhelmingly pro-Trump. I just wanted, for the purposes of this, to balance it by letting you hear other responses, just about 3-4 minutes of it.
In Ukraine, for NATO, and guess what? It was a bad...
This is Jimmy Kimmel, for those of you that don't follow it, and the other was Steven Colbert. They are the heirs to late-night comedy. This is what late-night comedy in America is now. For those of you who remember the years of Johnny Carson, this is his heirs.
Bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet.
Said he would be a dictator on day one. The question now is, what will the rest of us be doing on day one? Right? Now's the time to stand in solidarity with our friends, with our neighbors.
Well, it happened again. And in this democracy, the majority has spoken, and they said they don't care that much about democracy. The first time Donald Trump was elected, he started as a joke and ended as a tragedy. This time he starts as a tragedy. Who knows what he'll end as?
Any comfort?
So there was that, and just 2 more quick ones like that.
For more clips and full episodes. You might be asking yourself, what is the last?
28. Rachel Maddow is a anchor at one of the TV stations, one of the left-wing stations.
Found the solution. Here it is.
Not to be boring here for a second, but just getting very real. We now are just another one in the list of countries that has decided to, hey, what the heck? Let's try the strongman thing. There are many more countries in the world governed by that kind of a system than there are governed by ours. We are the only 248-year-old multiracial, pluralistic democracy in the world. And shall we keep it? A lot of our fellow Americans say we shouldn't. See, what they really don't want is for those tens of millions of Americans to wake up tomorrow feeling scrappy as hell. So now we can work full-time on being fricking pirates, on being a thorn in the side to anyone who now intends to try to turn this country into some tin pot tyranny. Hope you are feeling scrappy. Hope you are tapping into your inner pirate energy. Because it is one thing to be a defender of the realm. It is another thing to be in opposition. And opposition can be a lot of things. It can be dangerous. It can also be fun. It would have been nice to win the election. Didn't. Okay. Time to save the country.
So this is just giving you some balance. We like to give you balance. Get an idea, one more.
Hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.
So what happened last night?
Do this. We'll just do one.
Profoundly disturbed. I think if you look at the New York Times this morning, the headline was America makes a perilous choice. I think that in 2016, we didn't know what we would get from a Trump administration, but we know now. And we know now that he will have almost unfettered power. And so I worry, not about myself, actually. I don't worry about my station in life. I worry about the working class. I worry about my mother, a retired teacher. I worry about our elderly and their Social Security and their Medicare. I worry about my children's future, especially my daughter, who now has less rights than I have. And I remember my father telling me many, many years ago that I was the first person in his family to enjoy full civil rights. And now I have less civil rights than I had when he told me that. So again, I'm profoundly disturbed that the 14th Amendment of the Constitution did not prevent someone who participated in an insurrection from becoming president of the United States. I think that going forward, the convicted felon box on employment applications better be taken off, because if you can be the president of the United States, then you should not be prevented from employment in this country, because I remember applying for my jobs as a federal prosecutor, and there was a box for convicted felons.
Well,
and so that box better be taken off. And I think our healthcare system is now at risk. I think
no fluoride for anyone.
Yeah, economists have made clear that he's going to increase the debt by $7.75 trillion. I'm worried about mass deportation and internment camps, and I'm also worried about Elon Musk warning Americans to prepare for temporary hardship. I'm surprised at the result, but I'm not surprised. As a woman of color, I was so hopeful that a mixed-race woman married to a Jewish guy could be elected president of this country. And I think that it had nothing to do with policy. I think this was a referendum of cultural resentment in this.
So we see the way it went both sides. And as you can see, one side is so focused on identity politics that the thought is that I'm going to vote for someone that I would be excited by the idea that not what the economic policy is, or the immigration policy, or what the policy is on inflation, or what the policy is on Israel and the Middle East, but that I'm going to be excited by the chance to vote for a mixed-race person married to a Jew who goes to church on Easter. And so in all fairness, we've presented one side, the celebration in Israel, the Shehecheyanu and the Borei Pri Hagafen, and on the other side, we've seen how some of them end. And we're going to end on a happy note. We're going to end with two songs that are going to make us happy. Actually, and I hope many of you join with me in being more happy than I can describe. That thank God the Rachel Maddows and the Steven Colberts and the Jimmy Kimmels and this one, Sonny Hostin, that to have loud megaphones and they think that they're influencing the country, and what it must feel like the next day to find out that after 4 years of explaining how you should vote, that they didn't listen to them.
They're right. I hope that they are right.
Oh my God, Trump's going to win. I go, why is that? He goes,
This is like 20 seconds, and this says everything about how out of touch the wealthy celebrity supporters of the other side of Harris, how out of touch they are with the true issues that confront the middle class. This is 20 seconds, and then we go to music. Just catch, listen carefully. How out of touch.
Trump's going to win. I go, why is that? He goes, I went to the grocery store. Butter's over $3. But it actually, everything we're hearing after the election is,
I'm just
it
saying,
is
the $7.
What's that?
The $7.
What's that? Butter is $7?
Yeah.
What?
Some
Is
places.
it framed in gold? Okay.
That's how out of touch they are. That's how out of touch they are. Caught live on TV. As we So anyway, grateful for you all being here. A very unusual program today in a sense, but may God, as always, may He watch over Israel. We can't go home just feeling everything's in the bag now. Trump is a very volatile fellow, and he could just as easily get angry at Netanyahu. We saw that. He can come up with a deal of the century that includes giving up some territory. And then you have, so nothing's perfect, but there's no question that we dodged the real bullet. And with God's help, if we are worthy in the eyes of God, this could be a wonderful 4 years for Israel and for America. Could be a wonderful 4 years. Couple of weeks, watch the gas prices go down. So thanks very much, and bye-bye.